So, it's finally October, the scariest month of the year, unless you're a turkey, in which case November is probably scarier. In order to celebrate this spooky month, I thought that I would only make videos about the scariest things ever until the month ends. And well, what better way to start a scares than with talking about the scariest guy I know, FreddyFazbear. You see, in October of last year, FNAF left his target demographic of children and insane 30-year-olds and made it to the big screen. Yes, FreddyFazbear was once shown in the very same theater that could have been showing award-winning movies like Citizen Kane or Paddington 2. There could be 80-year-old grandpas and grandmas around the world that watched the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. However, the movie wasn't exactly received very well by a lot of people, mostly critics and people that don't know what a William Afton is. Most casual audiences and people contaminated with FreddyFazitis, however, ended up liking it. The movie is currently sitting at a 32% critic score and 86% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. When I first watched the movie, I actually really liked it. I do fall into the casual and FreddyFazitis crowds after all. I didn't think it was peak cinema or anything. FNAF could have beat out the greats like The Godfather or Despicable Me 2.
I know someone whose husband just died!
But I thought it was a fun movie. But now it's been nearly a year since the movie came out, and my taste in movies have greatly evolved. I used to think that Despicable Me 3 was a bad movie, and now I think that it's just alright. Now that's what I call progress. So in order to find out if the FNAF movie is the most epicest video game movie ever, or the critics wanted something, I decided to rewatch it. And what did I think? Well, why don't you watch the video to find out? After all, I wouldn't be a real YouTuber if I answered the question I posed in the title in the first couple of seconds. Anyways, the movie starts with some security guard schmuck trying to escape Freddy's, but Foxy's on the loose and ends up catching him. However, instead of killing the guard, Foxy puts him in Shreddy Faz chair, and the security guard gets his face shredded. Awesome! However, in order to avoid getting an R rating that will alienate the primary audience, the opening credits begin before we see this guy make out with Shreddy. I think I'm gonna cry. Speaking of the credits, I actually like them. It utilizes the Atari style from the secret minigame sound of the games, and the music is also really good here. These opening credits are also used to introduce a yellow rabbit who is taking some kids into the pizzeria's back room for some strange reason. Then we get introduced to the movie's main character, Mike Schmidt, who almost immediately begins doing push-ups, quickly making him an unrelatable character for a majority of the FNAF fans that watch this movie. Anyways, Mike is at his job in the mall, but suddenly he sees a guy kidnapping a kid. Mike skedaddles over to save the kid, and he proceeds to beat up the guy. Judging by the push-ups, he probably did a good job at that. However, as it turns out, the kid is actually the guy's son. So since beating up innocent people is usually frowned upon, Mike gets fired from his job, forcing him to go to this guy named Steve Ragland, who can help him find a new one. Steve offers Mike the night shift at some rundown pizzeria called FreddyFazbear's, but Mike declines the offer. What? This movie is called Five Nights at Freddy's. Mike's gotta work at Freddy's. Mike goes back home and tries to convince his sister Abby to eat dinner, but she's too busy drawing like some kind of nerd. Also, the most insane line in all of cinema is said here.
My friend says you're an idiot.
At least I'm real.
Then Mike goes to sleep, which is gonna happen a lot in this movie, and he has a crazy dream where his brother Garrett gets kidnapped, except this dream isn't really that crazy. You see, Mike's brother actually got kidnapped, and Mike thinks that he saw the person that did it, but just kind of forgot who they were. So every night he dreams about the kidnapping in order to try and remember the kidnapper. After this, we get introduced to Aunt Jane and the best character in the entire movie, her lawyer Doug. Aunt Jane wants custody of Abby for court money, and she hands Mike some papers for him to sign that'll do that. However, Aunt Jane isn't exactly a great person, so in order to keep custody of Abby, Mike decides that he should probably get a job. So he calls Steve and takes the night shift at Freddy's. Once Mike gets to work, he watches a spooky VHS tape and explores the pizzeria for a bit. Here, Mike finds the Freddy Faz gang, and boy are they creepy. As you can probably imagine, flipping through cameras for 6 hours isn't very entertaining, so Mike falls asleep on the job and begins having the same dream he always has. However, this time, the dream is a bit different. After Garrett gets kidnapped, a bunch of kids show up, and after Mike asks them if they see his brother, they run away. Before Mike can follow them, the alarm he set for the end of his shift rings, waking him up. Then we see what Aunt Jane is getting up to, and she's in this restaurant called Sparky's with her goons, and also Doug, who continues to be the most charismatic character on his screen. This scene also has the incredible Matt Pack cameo, and his name is Ness, like the topic of my favorite video, and he even says the iconic catchphrase. So Jane is trying to get Mike fired from Freddy's, and Jeff, who's one of her goons, brings up a pretty crazy idea.
Why don't we just kill him?
Since his previous idea isn't very feasible, Jeff comes up with a new one to trash Freddy's once Mike is done with his second night. Jane likes his idea and Doug doesn't say anything, so that's what they're gonna do. Speaking of Mike's second night, it's already time for that, and this time, he's locking in to do his job the best he can. Of course, his job is falling asleep, which he does pretty much the second he gets into the office. However, as Mike falls asleep, something terrifying is revealed. There's an animatronic roaming the pizzeria. It's Foxy.
Foxy! Foxy the Ferocious.
Much like the previous night, there were random kids in Mike's dream, but this time he gets a chance to follow one of them. Unfortunately, the kid turned out to be a little rascal, and he jump scares Mike. The jump scare is really weird to me, by the way. It looks like a crappy fan edit. Like, why are his eyes like that? It doesn't look good or scary. I think this franchise should just stick to animatronic bear jump scares. Anyways, this jump scare causes Mike to wake up, and the pizzeria speakers and lights are going crazy, so he turns them off and on again with a breaker. This is the closest the movie gets to a blackout scene, and I find that pretty weird because the whole power management thing is one of the main gameplay aspects of the original game. In fact, during Mike's first shift in the movie, Steve gives him the quick instruction to the pizzeria and makes sure to point out that the power is finicky. Why put that in the script to only have the power go out one time? Anyways, the pizzeria's doorbell rings, so Mike goes to the entrance where he's greeted by the police officer Vanessa. Vanessa's inclusion confuses me a bit because why? The movie takes elements from FNAF 1 and 3 for the story, and if you want to include the random balloon boy jump scares, then the movie also takes things from FNAF 2. Why take a character from Security Breach, a game that couldn't be more different from the original stuff than it already is? I mean, maybe future movies will reveal something about Vanessa that can be applied to the games as well, but I don't know, it just seems weird to me that a movie would use a character that shows up in a game that many people don't even like for like 5 seconds. Vanessa reveals that she's a big FNAF fan, and she takes Mike over to the main stage, while also revealing an insane piece of information.
Add to that the thing with those kids going missing.
What did you just say?
Prepare to have your mind blown.
Hey, you want to elaborate? Once Mike's shift is over, the crooks from Sparky's break into Freddy's in order to cause a ruckus. However, their job won't be so easy as the animatronics are on the loose. This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. I love the use of cameras and small background details. It's really the only scene in the entire movie that utilizes those two things, aside from the part where Foxy shows up when Mike turns off the power. The deaths in this scene aren't really that notable. Since this movie is PG-13, they're pretty much the FNAF equivalent of that one scene in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom where the Indoraptor bites the guy's head off, but I still think they're alright. That being said, there is one death here that is absolutely mind-boggling. I don't think I've mentioned her yet, but there's this character in the movie called Max, and she's Abby's babysitter, but she's also part of Aunt Jane's little gang. Max is just kinda in the car during this break-in scene, but she decides to enter the pizzeria since the rest of the crooks are taking a bit too long in their destruction of the pizzeria. For this next part, I want you to keep in mind that Max is the one character in the scene that has done absolutely no damage to Freddy's. Aside from being associated with the rest of the criminals, she is innocent. So Max sees a kid and follows him into a room. However, once she gets inside, instead of finding the kid, she finds FreddyFazbear. Max gets closer to Freddy, and suddenly, a human hand reaches out and she gets Bite of 87. What? This is probably the most graphic death in the entire franchise, and it happens to the character that's done nothing wrong. Why? Why couldn't this happen to Carl? Nobody cares about Carl. That was rude. I'm sorry, Carl. Also, this scene has the first swear in the entire franchise, and it's said by this guy. I think the honor of first swear should have gone to Doug, but I guess we can't have it all. Back to Mike and Abby. Abby finds the papers Aunt Jane gave Mike early in the movie, and she begins to tell Mike about how much she hates Jane. Yep, we just saw somebody get cut in half, and we're already back to family drama. Anyways, Vanessa shows up to tell Mike about the break-in that happened, also revealing that she found the sleeping pills he's been using to do his job properly. Mike tells Vanessa about how his brother went missing, and that the sleeping pills can help finding out who took him, but Vanessa just kind of throws them away. Hey, you could have just given it back to him, right? After this, it's time for the third night at Freddy's, but Mike can't find a babysitter for some reason, so he needs to take Abby to his job. Mike tells Abby to stay in the office for the entire night, but since Mike is a sleepy little man, Abby manages to sneak out. Meanwhile, in Mike's dream, he manages to ask the kids if they know who took Garrett, but instead of answering, they draw a rabbit and disappear. Before Mike can find out what this incredibly vague answer means, he hears Abby scream. Mike runs over to help her, but then it's revealed that she was just playing with the animatronics because they were actually nice all along. What? So Abby introduces the animatronics to Mike, and she says that they like pictures, so she draws a heart for Bonnie, who proceeds to show it to Foxy. These guys just killed 4 people. Mike and Abby go back home, and in Abby's room, Mike finds a drawing she made that had the same kids he sees in his dreams. This makes Mike realize that the dream kids are actually the missing kids that are possessing the animatronics, so he tells Abby to ask them if they know what happened to Garrett. Then it's time for night 4, and this is probably the most interesting night of them all. So Mike and Abby go to the pizzeria, and there they find Vanessa. Abby gets the idea to build an epic table fort with Freddy and the Faz gang, so it follows as a montage where everybody pitches in to help build the fort, and some wacky stuff happens, like Bonnie falling over backwards. I expected nothing less from the same franchise that has Liberty Chica. Vanessa and Mike go to the back room to find a roof for the fort, but instead they find this freaky doll. Vanessa explains that this doll has spring locks, which are things that allow an animatronic to also be worn by a person. However, they are very sensitive, and if they go off, you'll have metal puncturing your body, so that's not good. Anyways, Mike and Vanessa go back to the main area, but oh no! Abby wants to play some sick tunes on Bonnie's guitar, and she electrocutes herself. So now Vanessa is mad at Mike for bringing Abby to the pizzeria, and she says the most out-of-pocket line of the entire movie.
But if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
Why did you put such an out-of-nowhere line in the movie, Freddy? So now Mike doesn't want to bring Abby back to Freddy's for this next night because well,
I will shoot.
since the babysitter is still MIA, Mike has no choice but to call Aunt Jane over and have her babysit Abby, which makes her mad.
I hate you. Hate you, Mike.
Mike has no time to deal with this though, as he goes into Freddy's for the 5th night. He falls asleep as per usual, but this time his dream is a bit different. Instead of being an onlooker, Mike is actually part of the dream, and his family is actually interacting with him. The ghost kids then show up, and one of them tells Mike that if he gives him Abby, he'll make it so that Mike can return to this new version of the dream with his brother every night. Mike agrees to the kids' deal, but much like a doorman villain, he instantly regrets it and tries to tell the kids that he made a mistake. Then somebody wakes up Abby, which makes her happy, and I have no idea what this means. And the very next scene of Abby, she's still in her room mad at Mike. So what was that all about? Putting that aside, the kids are beating up Mike in his dream because they're just mean like that, and Foxy begins coming for him in the real world. Suddenly, Mike wakes up and he's in Shreddy-Faz's chair. Thankfully, he manages to escape just before Shreddy kills him, since the other security guard loosened it up a bit. I want to take this moment to ask a question. Why is Shreddy? Seriously, what is the point of his existence? He's not in any of the games, and if his job is just to kill security guards, then there's already animatronics roaming around that can do that much faster. Also, how does this thing even activate? Is FreddyFazbear just off camera with a big remote that turns Shreddy on? Maybe Shreddy's existence will be explained in a future movie, but as of now, it confuses me. Anyways, Mike begins running over to the exit while Foxy chases him, but he thankfully manages to escape since somebody opens the door for him. Back in Mike's house, Golden Freddy shows up to take Abby to Freddy's, and he also does a murder on Aunt Jane, except she might actually be alive because I guess it couldn't skip the opportunity to have more custody battles in the upcoming sequel. Golden Freddy and Abby hop into a taxi that's being driven by popular YouTuber Corey X Kenshin, and he delivers an epic one-liner.
Why do I always get the weirdos?
Meanwhile, Mike's in a police supply outpost with Vanessa, and she reveals that she knew the animatronics were dangerous all along. Now, you might be wondering why she didn't say that earlier when Abby was playing with the animatronics. Well, you see, I don't know. Vanessa said that the animatronics want to make Abby one of them, but then she proceeds to say that they don't want to hurt her. I still don't know what she means by this, and I've watched this movie 4 times already. No, I don't have a girlfriend, but that's besides the point. How are the kids planning on making Abby like one of them without hurting her? That's pretty counterintuitive considering they're all dead. Speaking of which, Golden Freddy and Abby are at Freddy's, but Golden Freddy disappears when Abby enters the pizzeria because he's like a ghost animatronic, I think. It's not explained very well. They don't even say that this guy is Golden Freddy in the movie. They just say that he's not Freddy. If I didn't already know about Golden Freddy, I would be very confused as to who this new bear is. What do you mean he's not Freddy? The red M&M isn't Freddy. Who the heck is this guy? While Abby wanders around the pizzeria, Vanessa's talking about the guy that is not only responsible for the missing kids incident, but is also influencing the animatronics to do some murders, and she calls him a very bad man, which is how you know he's evil. And then the most insane reveal of the movie is made.
His name is William Afton. He's my father.
Oh my god! Oh my god! So Vanessa gives Mike some tasers to tase the Freddy Faz gang, but she doesn't want to come with him because William Afton the bad man might show up. Mike sneaks into the pizzeria via vent like in a certain game that shall remain nameless, and he sees Chica taking Abby into a room. Mike uses water to shock both Freddy and Bonnie at the same time, and then he runs over to Abby, who's about to be spring locked by Chica. Mike tases Chica and begins telling Abby how sorry he is for everything that's happened. Probably would have been a good idea to say this outside of the pizzeria full of murder robots, but sure, why not? Mike and Abby start running out of the pizzeria, but Cupcake suddenly shows up and starts biting Mike's leg. Mike tells Abby to run away, but Foxy the Ferocious is once again on the loose, and he's looking for Abby. Also, this is the first instance of fully red eyes in the movie, so I don't know, that's cool I guess. Back to Mike and Cupcake, Mike sticks the taser into Cupcake's mouth and runs away to look for Abby. But then, something crazy happens. Spring Bonnie's about to kill Mike, so he wakes up all of the animatronics, including Cupcake. That'll be important. Vanessa also shows up to save Abby from Foxy and confront Spring Bonnie, who proceeds to take off his mask and reveal that he was none other than Steve Raglan this whole time. Holy crap, this twist is insane! Is what I would say if this twist wasn't already revealed by casting details. Mike notices a drawing in the pizzeria where Spring Bonnie's being all friendly with the kids, and he realizes that this could be how William influences the animatronics, so he tells Abby to make a drawing telling the kids that the yellow rabbit is actually evil and replace it with the one where he's friendly. Mike diverts all of the pizzeria's power to Abby's new drawing, and the animatronics now see William for who he really is. I know a lot of people think this is a stupid way of revealing Afton's true nature to the animatronics, but I am not one of those people. This is the most raw moment in all of cinema since Young Syndrome threw the poster of Mr. Incredible off his wall. I really like how the drawings, which are just background details in the games, actually impact the story here, and I think that this was set up pretty well since the movie focuses on the Spring Bonnie drawing a couple of times, and it also establishes that the animatronics like drawings. Anyways, the animatronics all gather around Afton, and suddenly Cupcake launches from Chica's hands and Spring locks Afton. As metal rods are slowly puncturing Afton's body, he manages to say one more thing.
I always come back.
Much like the drawing stuff, I know a lot of people have a problem with the way William says the thing, since it's not evil and British like in the games, but my problem is that this guy manages to say his epic villain catchphrase while he's in a tremendous amount of pain and dying. He shouldn't be able to speak right now, let alone say the line. Also, this scene isn't really pulled off that well. William looks less like sharp metal rods are entering his body and more like he needs to go to the bathroom after eating copious amounts of Taco Bell. Anyways, the pizzeria begins falling apart as the animatronic's eyes turn red and they begin dragging Afton away while Mike, Abby, and Vanessa escape. Before the movie ends, however, we get to see what Mike and Abby are getting up to after the events at Freddy's, and Abby asks Mike if they can visit the animatronics again, with him responding, "You'll never know what can happen." Spoiler alert, the sequel got greenlit, so I do know what's gonna happen. Take that, Freddy. So that was a FNAF movie, but before I give you my overall thoughts on it, I want to mention some things that couldn't fit into the plot recap. First of all, in terms of horror, this movie has no horror. Not only that, but the movie just kind of gives up on even trying to be scary after the break-in scene. Do you think the movie based on Five Nights at Freddy's, the jump scare game, would have a lot of, jump scares? But no, this movie barely has any. The only jump scares that actually got me the first time I watched this movie were the first two Balloon Boy jump scares. Other than that, the jump scares are either non-existent or just this. I love Balloon Boy's inclusion in here, by the way. It's never explained what his motives are or how he can even move. He's just here to be a nuisance and scare people. There's a lot of references in this movie, but they're mostly just background details, not in your face like in a certain movie I love making fun of. At least a reference in the movie is a Matt Pack cameo of him showing up and saying the iconic catchphrase he said a lot until he didn't. Also, I just want to point out that in the movie's cast listing, a majority of the cast has photos from a movie premiere or whatever, but Matt Pack's photo is just this. I don't really care much for Corey Extension's cameo in the movie since I've never really watched him, but good for him for getting it. That being said, I do care for the taxi driver he plays because he's the most tragic character in the movie. He just minds his own business and suddenly Golden Freddy and Balloon Boy show up to jump scare him. I feel bad for the guy. Even though the movie references things like Sparky the Dog and Chica's Magic Rainbow, it doesn't make the most basic references you'd expect a FNAF movie to make. Phone Guy doesn't show up here, and neither does a Toreador March, which is like the FreddyFazbear song. The Toreador March was in the trailers, but for some reason it was cut from the final movie. I'm pretty sure somebody working on the movie just hated George's visit. Phone Guy could have been included pretty easily as well. Just replace the VHS Mike plays during his first night with the night one phone call and call it a day. I'm not really a big fan of the Celebrate poster in the office. It's the exact same as the one in the game, and the in-game models look kind of out of place here. The animatronics in the movie look nearly identical to their in-game counterparts, but they're not one-to-one, especially Bonnie, who's a completely different color in the movie. I think it would have been a better idea to remake the Celebrate poster with the movie animatronics. Speaking of which, the animatronics in this movie look incredible. They're easily one of my favorite parts of the movie, and the fact that they're real things and not CGI makes them even cooler. They even showed up at Universal Hollywood's Halloween Horror Nights last year. We live in a world where FreddyFazbear is in some way connected to The Simpsons and Harry Potter. I wish the movie had more scenes of the animatronics just kind of doing animatronic stuff. I'm mad that the 2 times Freddy and his Faz gang are about to perform, something goes wrong. I have no idea why Scott Cawthon, creator FreddyFazbear himself, is dead set on not letting these guys finish a performance. Every animatronic ends up killing one person here except for Chica because Cupcake stole her kill like an annoying Fortnite player. The Cupcake is weirdly important in this movie, by the way. He's literally the one to kill the main villain. On one hand, I get why this was done. It would look weird if FreddyFazbear punched Afton and activated the spring locks, but on the other hand, Cupcake? Really? Foxy also gets a lot of focus. This movie has like 3 different instances of him running down the exact same hallway to get someone. I really like the part where he's in the arcade looking for Abby. I wish the pizzeria's party lights run more in this movie because they look really good. During this scene, Foxy has red eyes for the first time, and these are probably the most controversial part of this movie aside from the fact that it's on R-rated Bloodfest just like the games. But honestly, I like the orange and red eyes a lot. They look really good. Now, do they make the animatronics look less scary? Yes, is what I would say if these guys were scary in the first place. Despite the fact that these guys terrified me as a child, I have come to the conclusion that FreddyFazbear is in fact not scary, and the movie versions of the animatronics are even less scary, especially Bonnie, who's a friendlier blue color now instead of the purple he's always been. The animatronics here just look a bit too clean, and the fact that they have fur doesn't help. I honestly think that takes away their scare factor more than the red eyes do. The highlight of the movie is easily Spring Bonnie. Not only is his design great, but his entrance is genuinely one of the coolest villain entrances in any movie I've ever seen, which isn't really saying much when you look at the movies I've watched. I wish it was a bit more foreshadowing before he comes in, since he just kind of shows up, but I don't care. This is peak villain entrance, and the music makes it even better. My main complaint with Spring Bonnie is the fact that for a majority of his screen time, he has the mask off, which is pretty lame. I want to see the spooky yellow rabbit, not some old man. It's also never explained that Spring Bonnie's a spring lock suit until Cupcake bites him, which I think could have been a bit confusing to people not familiar with the franchise, and I think it would have been a good idea to replace this weird doll that introduces spring locks with Golden Freddy. That way, not only would Golden Freddy have gotten a proper introduction, but people also would have been able to infer that Spring Bonnie's a spring lock suit like Golden Freddy, since they're both clearly related. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about before ending the video? Oh yeah, Doug. He's the best character and he deserves more screen time. If he's not in the sequel, then let's just say I won't be happy. So in conclusion, did I like the Five Nights at Freddy's movie? Yeah, like I said earlier, it's not a masterpiece like Despicable Me 2, but it's a fun movie. I'm worried that I'm pretty biased since I am a FNAF fan, but I probably would have liked the movie even if I've never touched a Freddy FNAF game before, just obviously not as much. I saw some people call others dumb and stupid for saying the movie's bad, because this is a movie for real fans only, but I really don't think that's true. Even though the movie mostly tries to appeal to fans, it also tries to be accessible to people that don't know about this franchise. With the exception of Vanessa being William's daughter, everything the movie treats as a big reveal is already common knowledge to anybody even slightly invested in this franchise, and the movie also goes out of its way to explain basic things like spring locks, so clearly non-fans were kept in mind at least a little bit while making this movie. And I don't know, I don't think your opinion on the movie should be invalidated because you're not a FreddyFazbear superfan, because there's a lot of dislike about this movie if you're not a fan, or even if you are one, honestly. Hopefully the sequel is also good. I think the Withers are going to make this movie a lot scarier than the first, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go apply for a job in the local pizzeria. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Bye I guess.